Hello and welcome to this past paper question on the Cold War. Explain one consequence of the Berlin Airlift. So, as with all consequences questions, we like to look at what happens after the event. We don't talk about the airlift itself. We carry on and talk about what the reactions were, what the people involved in the situation did next, how they felt about things, and what it caused them to have to then do as a consequence of the original airlift. So we're going to talk about that now. So let's start with just giving some context about the Berlin airlift itself. So we've got that background knowledge when we come up with our consequences. So let's just start. So we know there was a blockade of Berlin by Stalin in 1948. He was trying to starve West Berlin so that he could force the Allies to leave Berlin, part of a dastardly scheme to take control of Berlin. And we know that the reaction to that was, well, we have to fly goods in to protect the people. So they did that. The Americans did that. So over the course of 10 months, we know they flew 275,000 flights. Thousands and thousands of tons of food and coal went into the city. Sometimes flights were leaving every 30, 60 to 90 seconds, on some days. Just the regularity of flights. They flew something like 9 million miles in total, but they've kept the city alive. So the Berlin airlift was a massive success, and the consequences are, there's loads of consequences of that, which we can talk about now when crafting our question. So then, we've got a question on one consequence of the Berlin Airlift. I've come up with three consequences, so you can pick which one you want to try and explore. Obviously, the effect on relations was quite negative. It was, let's have a look at the first one. So the effect on relations, you could say something about maybe how it being a propaganda victory for the USA. It was massive. They found a peaceful solution to an aggressive situation. They made it look like capitalism had won. They'd used money to fly planes in, so they'd been able to defeat an aggressor. On the other hand, Stalin looks really weak because he's the one that backed down after having been aggressive. So it looks like it's a propaganda victory for the West, and it makes the Russian and it makes communism look like it needs to bully people in order to get its way. So that's the effect on relations. Alternatively, if you want to write about the long-term division of Germany, that's another consequence, because after the Berlin airlift, they decided to finally solidify the split between West and East. And West Germany took its capital in the city of Bonn, and it became known as the Federal Republic of Germany. Whereas Stalin later then named East Germany, he called it the German Democratic Republic. But what we have now is the actual official split. Before it was just controlling zones. Now we have an actual split in Germany, and this split is going to last right to the end of the Cold War. Another consequence of the Berlin airlift, which you could choose to write about, which I'm going to do my example on, is the creation of NATO in 1949. So obviously there was this threat now that Stalin had posed, and they realized that no one country is powerful enough to stand up to Russia, to the Soviet Union. So they decided to create a mutual protection pact, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, where they all agreed to protect each other in the event that one of the member countries was attacked, and hopefully that would deter Stalin from future aggression. That was the idea after the Berlin airlift and the blockade. And of course, that has the knock-on effect that later on, Khrushchev, when he comes to power, he creates the Warsaw Pact in 1955, and we end up with a divided Europe militarily. We end up with two sides ready to face off, making the likelihood of war just that little bit more realistic. So we've got three consequences, and I suppose you could pick whichever one you feel more comfortable with. Check your notes, look back at what you've done in class, and pause the video now and give yourselves 5 to 6 minutes. You can time yourself to write a good consequences answer. Okay, right, pause the video and good luck. Okay, so I've chosen to look at the creation of NATO as a consequence because it does happen in the same year, so it's quite a good one to use. And it does come about because they were afraid that Stalin had been aggressive and they want to try and prevent that next time. So I've said one consequence of the Berlin airlift was that it led to the creation of NATO. Now you obviously have to use that, always use the same format to start your answer, regardless of which option you chose. Now then, the Allies created NATO, which stands for North Atlantic Treaty Organization, in 1949 to protect against Stalin's future aggression. So after the Berlin airlift, we want to prevent him from being aggressive again. They realized that alone, no individual country could stand up to the power of the USSR, but that together they might stand a better chance. NATO countries agreed that through their membership, if one of the countries comes under attack, the rest would come to its aid. So I've just given a bit of detail. I've said, so after the airlift, they don't want Stalin to be a problem. They've created NATO, and this is what NATO does. This is what its purpose is. Now, of course, there's a bit more to the story than that. I could say what the future ramifications of that, because even NATO has a knock-on effect that's very similar to it. So let's find out. I said NATO had the effect of causing Stalin to think twice before threatening Western interests and made Western countries feel more confident about their protection against communist aggression. So I've just gone a bit further to say what the impact of NATO is going to be and how it's actually met its goals. It also directly led to the later Soviet leader Khrushchev creating a communist version, the Warsaw Pact, in 1955, with similar aims. Of course, they also just had communist countries. Both of these organizations would lead to Europe becoming divided militarily, perhaps increasing concerns that with two armed camps, World War might become a more realistic reality. So World War III could be coming. Now, there's probably a bit too much in there. You probably won't have time to write all that. But as long as you've got the main bits, which is why is NATO created as a result of the airlift? So why is it a consequence? And what does NATO do? And does it actually work? Does it actually, you can go on to say, almost like a consequence of a consequence, just talking about its effect and does it actually meet its goals? But that's a good answer, and hopefully that should get 4 out of 4. And I hope that you had a chance to learn from that one. Thank you very much.